Well, members will be recognized for 5 minutes for questions. I'll begin. Ms. Duber, I have to tell you how disappointed I am. I think Mr. Walden said the same thing, and the other members are up here with your opening statement. Coast IRB could have come forward this morning and admitted that they made numerous mistakes by not checking into the credentials of a fake company, the fake doctor, and the fake device that Coast ultimately approved for use in human testing. Instead, like a kid who's got caught with his hand in the cookie jar, you now come before Congress today to complain that you were caught. Nowhere in your opening statement is there any sense of concern that your company's approval could have led to human subjects being exposed to a dangerous substance, in which without testing, lives could have been injured or lost as a result of your company's action, and all you do is complain that you were caught. Where's the personal responsibility and where's the corporate responsibility? So let me ask you this, Mr. Duber. You were interviewed on the record by committee staff last week. They asked you some basic questions about your medical review of GAO's experimental testing protocol. And let me put them on the screen. Here's your answers. When our counsel asked you, do you feel your company's medical review of the protocol was adequate? You indicated yes. Can you get that slide up? You indicated yes. So is it fair to say that none of the board members, including Dr. Dodd, who did the primary medical review, has raised concerns with the medical review of this protocol? Is that fair to say, that you have no concerns about the protocol?
This was a sophisticated fraud, sir.
Okay, my question is it still your opinion that the medical review was fair in this case?
We did a safety review. Dr. Dodd looked at this protocol. And
you feel it's safe?
We checked with, Dr. Dodd made the conclusion that it was safe, and we have just proven that it is safe with an independent review.
Sure, your independent review, you talk about the 2.5% of the adhesive block. What about the 97.5% of the liter that would be left in the woman's abdomen? What about that 97%? You don't even know what it is. So how can you test to see if it's even safe in your little report there you have from your expert?
Well, he looked at it and he said that...
He looked at what? 2.5%. That's what he looked at.
He looked at the whole device.
Yeah, look at your protocol. You're going to leave 1 liter behind. What about the other 97.5% of the liter that you have no idea what it was in our protocol because you never asked?
Well, sir,
So therefore, you can't sit here and say the other 97.5% has been tested and is safe when you don't know what to test for because you don't know what the product contains.
Sir, I am not a scientist. I did not do the primary review.
Neither am I.
But what I can tell you is that Dr. Dodd told me when I talked to him about this, that this propylene glycol substance,
which is 2.5% of
right.
1 liter,
right,
is safe.
That is.
What about, didn't the doctor tell you what the other 97.5% was?
We didn't discuss.
You didn't ask.
Right.
What if it's poison? So let me go on. GAO submitted this fake protocol to 2 other IRBs that came to exactly the opposite conclusion that you did. They both rejected the study. The first IRB rejected the study was a company called Argus IRB. Here's what they said. We realized it was a terrible risk for the patient. The concept of the study was risky. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. Doing a surgery, a major surgery on a patient, then a mystery guy walks in and dumps a solution in the body. Where's the safety for the patient? Who's overlooking all these parts? Who is looking for the patient? Who's looking out for the patient? I had a problem with propylene glycol gel. They said it was a safe substance. I didn't see any data on it. There was no data in the protocol indicating that propylene glycol gel was safe. Internally, it was a serious problem. Mr. Duber, how is it possible that your company found that this study wasn't risky at all when other IRBs rejected it? And actually a second IRB called Fox Company, they said, I could have sent the protocol to the board of review, but I spared wasting their time. There was no monitoring for safety. It appeared that people were just going to go out and start injecting people. Mr. Duber, given what the other IRBs found, don't you think your company made a major mistake here?
Our company followed the regulations that FDA requires.
Really? Where's the due diligence in your company? Where's the safety of the patient by injecting them with a liter bottle and 97.5%, you have no idea what it is.
Sir.
Pardon?
It had a 510K exemption, for one thing.
So did you go check that 510K?
No, we did not.
Is that part of due diligence, checking a 510K? You relied on it, shouldn't you check it?
It is now. We've changed our SOPs to incorporate those since we've been now hoodwinked by our government.
Well, my time's up. Mr. Kutz, let me ask you this last question if I can. Do you believe Coast Medical Review was adequate? Do you agree with Mr. Duber that there was no risk involved with injecting a liter of this mystery substance into a woman's abdominal cavity?
I don't have the expertise to say that, but what I would say is this, is if you have a system where two companies can say this thing is the riskiest thing they've ever seen, and they rejected it, even in some cases before it got to the board, and at the same time we have an IRB that says this is perfectly safe, we got a real problem here. So I think that would be what I can say based on my expertise.
Thank you. I recognize Mr. Walden for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Duber, I want to go to this report from, I guess it's Kupek Group, LLC, because he says, in my opinion, within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, there's no sound scientific foundation for finding the constituents in the adhesive block gel described in the clinical study, protocol pilot study, blah, 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 are unsafe at the dose recommended for testing. Is that the same thing as saying the entire grouping of those items in this proposed gel are safe? Does his report actually say, or this company's report actually say, that the entire compilation and usage of the gel is safe, or just that the two constituent ingredients alone are safe?
That is our understanding. That we asked him to review the gel at the 2.5% for this study and for the amount left in the cavity, and he said that it is not unsafe at this dose recommended for testing.
And so is he saying to you then that he would have approved it for use in human subjects?
That's the way we understood it, yes.
And left in their stomachs or their belly for up to 5 months?
Yes.
Where does it say that in the report? I don't see it in the conclusion. And where does it discuss the procedures involved?
I haven't had the opportunity to read the whole report.
When did you ask for the report, sir?
Several days ago.
So what report did you ask for that would have shown this was safe when your board approved this gel 7.0?
Well, excuse me.
While you're consulting with counsel, I'll go to Dr. Minkoff. You can continue to consult if you need to. Dr. Minkoff, obviously you're representing HHS.
Yes.
You heard my comments. I heard yours in terms of more of a recitation of what the rules and the procedures are for your agency, and the same from Dr. Les for FDA. What troubles me greatly, and I think would trouble the people I represent, is that virtually anybody, even with the most silly of applications, can register as an IRB simply by emailing your agency, and it gets entered, even if the name of the town you're from is Cheatsville, Arizona, for which I assume there's no zip code. Is this preventable?
Congressman, it is true that anybody could enter information into the registration system. The registration system was a response to the very OIG report that several of you commented on, and it basically established a registration system as a method of collecting minimal information so there would be a list of IRBs.
What do you do with that information mostly?
We use it to contact IRBs, to send information to them.
Information about what?
About a change in the system. There may be a compliance allegation alleged against a particular IRB, so we'll contact them using the contact information.
Do you use it to contact them about conferences and things?
It could sometimes be used for that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Mr. Duber, let me go back to you because I sense you may have an answer to my question.
Yes, sir. The primary reviewer on this, Dr. Dodd, had
very distinguished credentials, by the way.
Yes, and he was very familiar with propylene glycol, which is the basis of this substance, and he told me that propylene glycol can be ingested in large amounts in the body and is not toxic, and it is proven to be non-cancerous, and there's been no question about its toxicity in any part of the body, even remaining in the body for a period of time. He's an expert medical reviewer for the California Medical Board. He's chief of staff at the Lodi Medical Hospital. He's chairman of his institutional review board at Lodi Medical Hospital. He's an OB/GYN also, so he knows his stuff.
I'm sure he does. Dr. Less, since you're FDA, is there any problem with ingesting this chemical in your body and having it sit there for 5 months and in concert with the surgeries and all? You can't answer that.
I was just going to say, having not seen the device description, preclinical testing, biocompatibility testing, we wouldn't be able to comment on that.
Mr. Coots, maybe you can help us here. What did the other IRBs say about this procedure and the protocols and the tests and all?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that because it goes beyond just is the product safe.
Right.
If I could read a few of their comments to you, if that's okay?
Please.
The first one, as you mentioned, said that our submission was so bad they weren't even going to give it to the board. They also said that our protocols showed no evidence of quality control for sterility or consistency of the product. The next comment is very, very important. They said there was no prior investigation report of the preclinical animal studies we claimed to have performed, and they wanted to know whether there had been any adverse events, whether our product killed animals or hurt animals. Second IRB said, who is the manufacturer of adhesive block and where is it made? Seems like a logical question. We didn't have that in our protocols. Where will these surgeries take place? That wasn't in our protocols. How are the hospitals and surgeons being selected? That wasn't noted. Has the surgeon or hospital read the protocols, and do they agree? We didn't know. We didn't have an answer to that. Provide the diagram used to record the incision lines. And the last one that seems fairly relevant to what you're discussing here, who will be performing and taking the tissues and biopsies? So those were some of the substantive comments.
Mr. Coots, did this IRB, which, by the way, made itself known to the public through their public relations outreach efforts. You didn't do that, did you?
No, we've never used
and
the
we
name
did
until
not.
now.
And so did this IRB come back to you with any questions about the protocols, any questions about?
Their initial focus was on the consent form, and they wanted us to, if you will, dumb it down so fifth grade level of reading could be done. So they were very focused on the consent form, which is a good thing.
Part of their
not a lot of substance on the actual medical or the issues of the hospitals. Who are these surgeons? Who's this person actually putting the item into the woman's pelvic region after open surgery? No questions at all of substance like that.
My time's expired.
Thank you, Mr. Walden. Mr. Gett for questions, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Duber, how long has Coast been in business?
Since 2002.
Since 2002, and since that time, you've reviewed 352 protocols, correct?
No, I don't know exactly how many we have reviewed.
Have you declined any of the protocols that you've reviewed?
My understanding is yes, but I don't know how many.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I would ask unanimous consent that Mr. Duber supplement his responses to tell this committee how many protocols that they've reviewed and how many they've approved and how many they've rejected.
Without objection.
Thank you. Now, with this particular protocol, you took this on 5 months ago, correct?
Correct.
And you approved the protocol for testing on humans within 48 hours, didn't you?
On this particular study, I'm not sure what the turnaround time was.
Well, your company advertises a 48-hour turnaround on most cases, correct?
What that refers to, ma'am, is that...
yes or no?
I can't answer yes or no because I need to explain it.
All right, go ahead.
The turnaround time refers to the amount of time it takes for the Coast administrative staff, which is separate from the board, to review the documents presented by the protocol sponsor and
okay, I got you. So it's the administrative turnaround. How long, and on average, per protocol does it take you to approve this protocol for human testing?
I'm not sure because the board, every member of the board has to review thoroughly the protocol.
So can you give me how long did it take on this case Did it take 48 hours to approve it for human testing on this case?
Well, it probably took longer than that because
Well, how much
there were
longer?
two board member, two
3 days?
board meetings.
4 days? 5 days?
Well, there was a week between the preliminary approval and the final approval.
A week, okay. Now, excuse me, sir, we can swear in your lawyer if he'd like to testify, but I'd like you to answer. Now, so it took a week to approve this protocol. At the time that the protocol was approved for human testing, the report that was prepared by this very fine doctor that you talked about, did he prepare that report at that time that the protocol was approved?
Are you referring to the minutes?
I'm referring to the QPIC Group LLC report that you provided to this committee late last night.
And you're asking how long did it take him to do this?
No, I'm saying did he prepare this at the time 5
No,
months ago
no.
when it was approved?
No, he prepared
No.
this.
Was there a written report by him approved that went through all the scientific basis 5 months ago?
No.
No. Was there anything in writing analyzing the scientific evidence and the risks and benefits?
There was extensive discussion at the board meeting itself between
Was
the
there any
board
written
members.
report prepared at that
And
time?
there were minutes prepared for that.
Does this committee have copies of those minutes?
Yes.
Okay. I would ask our committee staff if I can get a copy of those minutes, please. Now, this report, when was this report that you keep referring to as to the scientific efficacy of the protocol prepared?
Yesterday.
And why was it prepared yesterday?
Because we
Because you were coming in to testify today, right?
We contacted this individual and asked that he review this because
Because you were coming in to testify today,
well,
right?
we were convinced, because Dr. Dodd was convinced that this substance was safe. He made that determination. The board agreed. We have 5 doctors, high-quality doctors on our board, and they agreed it was safe.
Okay.
We just wanted, before we came here, to find out if that wasn't
To find out, in fact, if it was
the
safe.
case.
We
and it
could have been
was.
doing human testing for 5 months without that report.
But no one, ma'am, no one we have never at Coast ever had a fraudulent study submitted to us. There's no economic reason for anybody to do such a thing.
Okay,
In fact,
okay, I'm sorry. First of all, let me stop you and say I now have the minutes in front of me, and the whole discussion is about a paragraph long. But as the chairman is saying, the paragraph never talks about what's in that 95% of the substance. So how would they possibly know if this would be safe?
It's based on propylene glycol, which is proven to be safe.
But that's 2.5%.
Propylene glycol,
Well, what's in the rest?
The board reviewed that and felt that it was safe. And
Right,
there was
okay.
a 510K
say-
device upon which they were basing, the fact that existed and therefore it should be safe. And, of course, we didn't check the 510K device to see if it was real. But we've never had reason to do that, ma'am.
Let me just stop you. Now, Ms. Christensen Green and I are sitting here looking at this going, we sure don't want this in our abdomens. And I think all the other women sitting here today are thinking that. That's the thing about IRBs. We think that when we ask IRBs to review a protocol, we're doing it so that they can review the safety of the entire protocol. And we have had situations like this where we had one situation where an IRB approved a protocol where they performed one type of plastic surgery on one half of someone's face and another type on another half. And that person was grossly disfigured. What would have happened if this actually would have gone into human testing and they would have put something poisonous as the other 97.5% into women's abdomens?
I can't speculate on what would have happened.
Yeah, I can't either. And Dr. Meinkoff, would you agree that's a problem?
Congresswoman, this study is outside OHRP's jurisdiction. It was not federally funded.
Well, I understand that, but if there was a study that put 97.5% of a substance as part of a human trial into someone's abdomen, that would seem to be a problem.
Again, this is not under our jurisdiction. I think FDA is in a better position.
So you don't, okay, Dr. Les,
comment
what's
on
your
the
view?
facts. I mean, we saw no protocol.
Right.
We have not seen the protocol or device description either. We would need to know what's in the product before we could comment.
Right, but you certainly wouldn't think we should, you certainly wouldn't approve some kind of a drug that put a whole bunch of fluid like this where it wasn't specified what it was as part of a surgical operation.
We would need to know what's in the product, how it's being used, a full
Thank you.
device description.
I just have.
No, let's,
Okay.
we got to move on.
Thank you.
We got both chairs, former chairs, would like to ask questions. Mr. Barton for questions, please.
Thank you. You talk about a target-rich environment for questions. My first question is to our representative from the GAO. The protocol and the device that y'all chose, I don't know if it was you personally, but your organization consciously picked one that the FDA had already rejected and then changed it to make it even worse. Isn't that correct?
We picked something that was available on the internet and altered it significantly. The three components of the actual gel we made up from stuff on the internet, so we never mixed it together. We don't know if it works or doesn't work. We just put it together on paper. And
but you tried to make it very easy for anybody that was really trying to review the protocol to figure out that it was terrible and to reject it, which 2 of the IRBs did.
Yes, we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah, and then this one rubber stamped it almost before they got it. Is that a fair statement?
Well, they actually, I mentioned the coupon in the opening statement. They gave us a pre-review with the coupon, and then the final review is where they authorized the informed consent and then the actual protocols.
How did you pay for their review?
Well, we gave them our credit card number. As it turns out, they never actually charged us.
Really? I would have thought they would have cashed the check almost as quickly as they certified approval. But,
we were surprised they did, and everybody else did.
Dr. Les and Dr. Meinkoff, what can be done to decertify this company right now? Why are they still in business?
I'm sorry. Again, we don't have we have not seen the GAO's report to be able to comment on what exactly transpired.
I mean, I'm so mad at the company, I can hardly be civil, but I'm almost as upset with our government folks who are supposed to oversee these IRBs, and this company has gotten 4 or 5 notice letters in the last 2 to 3 years, and yet they're still in business. And they have the gall to come here and threaten to sue the government. I mean, we ought to have their butt being kicked out the door within the week.
I could provide some background to you on how the process would generally work for a product such as this. This would be considered a significant risk product, subject to FDA's jurisdiction. It would require an investigational device exemption in order for the study to proceed. So
basically, as the representative of the FDA, you're just saying it's business as usual.
No.
These folks are going to stay in business for another 4 or 5 years, maybe approve a product that kills some innocent person, and then we'll have another oversight hearing 3 or 4 years down the road. I mean, what steps are being taken right now to decertify these charlatans that raised $4 million in revenue last year, scamming the public?
Congressman, what I wanted to explain to the committee is that for significant risk products such as this, there should have been FDA oversight as well as IRB oversight.
There wasn't.
No, this product should have been submitted to the FDA, so we could have reviewed the product, looked at what it was made of, biocompatibility testing, sterility testing, all of that. That piece of this picture was not part of the operation. So that piece of the human subject protection was not invoked.
I mean,
the product
as the FDA representative, what are you going to do to use whatever enforcement mechanisms the FDA has to hold this particular IRB company accountable?
We would have to go and look at...
What are you going to do?
We need to
Are you going to do anything at all? Are you going to make a report? Are you going to make a recommendation?
We will take the information from the GAO, fully evaluate it, do our own investigation, and see
what
needs to happen. But we need to see the GAO's findings and see exactly what happened and evaluate it and see what we need to do.
Do you have any sense of outrage about this?
Without knowing exactly what went on,
so the answer to that is no, you don't.
We do. We are very concerned with human subject protection.
Well, Dr. Meinkoff, you represent HHS. Do you have any sense of outrage about this? Are we the only people, the people that are elected, are we the only ones that seem to be?
First of all, I would certainly welcome, on OHRP's behalf, obtaining information about what happened. We have yet to see any actual information, documentation of what happened. We would welcome obtaining that and reviewing it and taking appropriate action based upon that information.
So you're in a passive mode also? If we bring a dump truck load of documents, you will review them? Are you going to be an advocate for investigation, use the authority of the Health and Human Services?
OHRP is an advocate for improving the protection of research subjects. Again, nobody has provided us yet any documented information about what happened. We welcome that. We were eager to get it even before this hearing, and we would welcome receiving it, and we have appropriate procedures to protect subjects, and we'd implement those procedures and determine appropriate action.
Well, my time's expired, Mr. Chairman, but I'm outraged, and I'm going to encourage you and Mr. Waxman and Mr. Walden to use every authority of the United States Congress and the Energy and Commerce Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee to eliminate these bad actors. I have a sister-in-law who's undergoing cancer therapy treatment. She's stage 4 right now, and she is looking at submitting to some protocols for some experimental drugs that would be subject to an IRB approval, and it appalls me that, you know, it's apparently, with the exception of GAO, who seems to be pretty intense about this, FDA and HHS appear to be almost indifferent, and of course the IRB president is incensed that we're even asking questions. I mean, that's just outrageous. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I make a point?
I will work with you, Mr. Chairman, and we will
Mr. Coons, if you want to ask them, respond to Mr. Barton.
Yes, we have actually sent a letter to FDA as of yesterday requesting them to do an investigation. An interesting point is when the letter was sent by the committee and Coast made the allegations against us, FDA had an investigator with a U.S. attorney to go after charges after our fake companies. So they were very aggressive at that point in time.
Bless their little hearts.
Going after criminal. Without any evidence except a letter from Coast, they were ready to go to the U.S. attorney to go after us. So I just want to make sure you understood that, Mr. Barton.
We have a company here that has received 3 or 4 notice letters in the last several years. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I yield back.
Well, we thank the gentleman. Our hearing is going to continue, as the former chairman noted earlier. This is our second hearing on IRBs, and something we have an interest in, and there will be legislation. I know Ms. DeGette has legislation. There will be other legislative proposals after this hearing, I'm sure. We have 7 votes on the floor. I'm going to ask members' patience and ask them to come back in approximately 1 hour. We will be in recess for 1 hour, and then we'll come back and continue this hearing. Thank you.